Welcome to Hispanic Biz Success Stories. I'm Homero Galicia. We interview successful business owners who have built good businesses to learn from them their story, how they built the business, what struggles they went through, and what victories they've had. Today we're fortunate to have with us Mr. Leroy Candelaria, who is the CEO of Desert Imaging. Mr. Candelaria, thank you so much for taking time to let us interview you.
Thank you, Homero. It's my pleasure to be here today.
Thank you. Mr. Candelaria, you have a fascinating story, and I know you've been in El Paso a while, but you're not from El Paso. Where are you from?
I'm originally from the Belen, New Mexico area. For those of you who don't know where Belen's at, it's south of Albuquerque.
And you grew up there in Belen then?
I grew up in Belen and graduated high school from Belen High School.
And Belen's a farming community.
It is. I grew up in a farming background, which is different than where I'm at today.
And do you go back and you still have family in Belen?
All my family's in Belen for the most part.
Ah, so you go up pretty regularly.
I go regularly. My daughter goes to school in Albuquerque, so I have an excuse to go regularly.
Okay, so it's about a 3-hour drive.
Yes, it is.
And you went to UNM?
I graduated the School of Pharmacy at UNM in 1983, but my first 3 years of college were at Southwestern Adventist College in Keene, Texas, which is near Dallas. It's a suburb of Dallas, sort of. And it was a church college.
Okay.
From there, I applied to pharmacy school and graduated at the University of New Mexico.
Oh, okay. So you're a pharmacist. Is that a PharmD?
At that time, there was no PharmD program. What it is, it's a pharmacist, which was a BS in pharmacy. I went to additional schooling for the nuclear pharmacy program. At that time, it was a new and upcoming specialty in pharmacy. And another year got me not necessarily residency, but a specialty in nuclear pharmacy.
And why'd you like pharmacy?
You know what? Interesting enough, I didn't start off to be a pharmacist, and like many kids at that age, I was looking for what I wanted to be in life. And I read an article one time that said, "Do you like math?" And then it asked, "Do you like the sciences, or do you like chemistry, and do you like biology?" And I thought to myself, well, yeah, check. I like them all. And it said, "Why don't you try pharmacy as a career?" And it was really simple as that. It kind of fell onto me, and it's been good ever since.
That's good. You have brothers and sisters?
I have, yes, I have 2 brothers and 4 sisters.
And what did they all study? Different things?
My 2 brothers are social workers.
Okay.
And my sisters did not go to college.
And your mother, what did she do?
My mother was a homemaker. She stayed at home, and she probably had the hardest job of all, actually, trying to keep us all in line, and she was a wonderful mother.
And your father?
My father worked for civil service. He worked for the post office.
Okay.
And he did mechanic on the side, so he had a part-time garage.
Wow. What did you learn from your mother, and what did you learn from your father?
You know what? What I learned, I learned obviously a lot from my mother and father. There's a saying by Abraham Lincoln that I really like, and what he says was, everything that you are or everything you aspire to be, you owe to your mother. And that's a true statement. Without my mother, I wouldn't be here today, number one, but I wouldn't be half the person that I am. She was a very honest person. She made me feel like I was the most important thing in her life, although I realized all of her kids felt the same way. But she gave me the feeling of being special, and the feeling that I could do anything that I wanted to do in this world if I set my mind to it. So I guess she gave me the confidence that I needed to go on to the next step. And my father, he worked hard. He was the provider, and he worked 50, 60 hours a week. And in the farming community, it's fairly normal for everyone to work hard. So for my father, I think I developed the normalcy, I guess, of putting in a lot of hours and work, and more importantly, enjoying the work that you do.
So did you have a lot of confidence when you went to college?
You know what, to be honest with you, no, I did not. Prior to me going to college, none of my relatives had ever been past high school. So I was shaky at best on my confidence. And I developed confidence over the years, but I wasn't a very confident student at that time, and because of that, it probably held me back. I was a good student, but I was always intimidated by other students who had more experience and I guess were used to the college life. I was not. It was new to me, and to be honest with you, what hurt me quite a bit in college was I had no guidance. I had to do everything on my own.
Wow.
I didn't have the help of relatives to help direct me or ask questions to. So I made a lot of, I don't want to say mistakes, but I went a zigzag approach, I guess, through college.
Did you come from a Spanish-speaking home?
My mother and father both speak Spanish. My grandparents, all they did is speak Spanish. It's a Spanish-speaking community, although over the years there's been more gravitation towards more English and Spanish.
Sure.
And I think a lot of it has to do with the TV and I don't know, just
So as you went through college, you didn't have mentors who could guide you, like you say, in your family?
No mentors at all. Was by myself.
Wow.
And it was tough.
And when you went to pharmacy school?
When I went to pharmacy school, it was a little bit better. It was a lot better, actually, because it was a professional school. And once you get in the professional school system, i.e. the pharmacist, nursing, physician, they make it a point to make sure you get through school. So they're there to help you, to make sure that you finish the school that you started, versus the pre-pharmacy courses where it almost appears like they're weeding out at times.
Okay. So you enjoyed school?
I love school. Yeah, I do. I did enjoy school.
And so after you finished your pharmacy degree, you went back for more training?
Yes, I did. And that was in the nuclear pharmacy side. At that time, and this is a long time ago, there weren't any specialties in pharmacy. Basically, you graduated as a pharmacist and you worked at a retail pharmacy store. And I'm not going to say Walgreens, because in that time there's more mom and pop type pharmacies. They're not in existence today, but they were at that time. And at that time, they were developing some new drugs, I guess, that were radioactive, creating a specialty in nuclear pharmacy. And I was fortunate enough to be in the right time at the right place in the ground floor of a up-and-coming modality in pharmacy. And
you like the idea of nuclear pharmacy?
You know what? I like the idea of creating.
Okay.
I like new things. I like to change. I like to try to build a better mousetrap. And nuclear pharmacy allowed for that type of thing.
So after your study, where'd you find a job?
Well, I had a challenge in myself, so I picked the hardest job that I could find. And that was, instead of working for a nuclear pharmacy that was in existence, I was hired by a group in Dallas to open a pharmacy from scratch. So my first opportunity was building a nuclear pharmacy that wasn't there.
Right out of school?
Right out of school.
Nuclear pharmacy, can you explain what nuclear medicine is?
Nuclear pharmacy is really nothing more than working with drugs or pharmaceuticals that are radioactive. So there's an additional component. You got the drugs and then you got the radioactive component. You kind of mix them together and create what's called a radiopharmaceutical, which is a tracing agent or used for treatment or diagnosis and that type of stuff. It's more of a laboratory type setting versus a retail pharmacy setting. For example, no one comes into your pharmacy to buy radioactive drugs for the obvious reasons. They're restricted because of the danger levels of radiation or radioactive materials. So we sell only to those institutions that are licensed to handle them properly and safely. So our customer base is limited, to the professionals who use these products. So it's different.
I remember I grew up, a good friend of my family was a pharmacist on Alameda Street in El Paso. And I remember watching him with, I guess, a mortar and pestle and breaking things down and making his own concoctions. I guess that was the old pharmacy.
Yes.
When in nuclear pharmacy, do you mix the nuclear elements with the pharmaceuticals?
Not as much as initially. The field's 35, 40 years old now. Initially, there was a lot more compounding and mixing. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, the manufacturers have a lot of things prepared, and we call most of the products shake and bake. And it's a simplified concept, but you just put it in there, kind of mix it, and then take out the doses. It's not all that complex anymore. Things have gotten much easier over the years.
So you go out to start a pharmacy with. Now, did you have some business background?
No, I did not. I was 22 years old and very green.
Wow. So what was your first venture then? How did that come about?
The first venture came about from a group out of Denton that had nuclear medicine departments leased out. And for them, the next evolution, I guess, was to create a pharmacy to distribute to their own customer base. They needed someone to do it. Wasn't a whole lot of nuclear pharmacists in the country at that point in time because it was such a new field, and they probably couldn't get anybody else, and were stuck with a new grad.
How did they find you?
They sent one of their techs to the University of New Mexico to interview. At that time, there was only 3 schools that taught nuclear pharmacy. That was UNM in Albuquerque, USC in Los Angeles, and then someplace in Atlanta, I think.
Wow. And so they identified you right away.
They identified me. I was from the Southwest, and that made it a little bit easier, but it was a good opportunity for me.
So where did you start?
In Denton, Texas. They were trying to service the Tri-City area, or what they call the Tri-City area. There was Dallas, Fort Worth, and Denton, a little triangle there, which they were trying to service.
So they had the funding?
They had the funding.
And how did that go?
For me, it went well for me in respect to the fact that it was a great learning experience. I made a lot of mistakes. I was learning along the way. And fortunate for me, I suppose, not fortunate for them, I made my mistakes and learned on their nickel. I guess it was an education for me. That being said, they were able to create a profitable entity for themselves and reduce the cost of their own radiopharmaceuticals, since they were actually the end user for the most part. From there, we opened up another one in San Antonio, which I went to San Antonio to open that one up too. So for me, it was all education. And by the second one, I was a lot better off. By no means was I an expert in the field, but I was heading in the right direction.
What kind of mistakes do you make as you begin a business?
Well, not purchasing the right equipment, not negotiating the right contracts, the inability to know how to market the product. I mean, there's numerous mistakes that I can go on and on and on. But ultimately, it was a challenge in the fact that there weren't a whole lot of radio pharmacies to go back to learn from. It was an on-the-job type of learning the industry as you go. And the whole industry was like that. It wasn't just us in Denton, it was everybody.
And the product was needed.
The product was needed, yes. And it was a growing product. I mean, it was in its infancy when I started, but over the years, obviously, it's grown to, a big business, I suppose.
This was around, what, 85, 86?
This was in 1983. Went to Denton in 83, opened up in 83, and then San Antonio probably opened up in 84, 85.
Okay, and after San Antonio?
After San Antonio, I went back home to Albuquerque. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be closer to my family.
Okay.
And I got a job working retail pharmacy and teaching part-time at the University of New Mexico College of Pharmacy in the nuclear pharmacy program, which was still developing.
Okay, and how long did you do that?
I did that for about 1.5 years, and then got a job here in El Paso.
Really?
As a nuclear pharmacist, yeah.
How did that happen?
It kind of happened like everything else in my life by accident. Basically, just came down here to cover. Someone was going on vacation, and they needed help, and I came down to fill in the spot. And when I came to El Paso, I figured I'd be here a few months at the most, and here we are 30 years later, and I still haven't left, so it kind of grew on me.
So there was a nuclear pharmacy here?
Yes, there was. Yeah.
And so you worked with this pharmacy for a while?
I worked for the pharmacy here for a couple of years.
Okay, and then what was the next step?
The next step was trying to do it on my own.
Why did you want to do it on your own?
Well, because I thought I could do it better, to be honest with you. What happened was, at that time, because it was such a new business, they were all monopolized. And whenever you have a monopolized market, the tendency is for the prices to be high and the service to be low.
So there's no competition?
There was no competition. So I felt there was an opportunity by creating competition.
Wow. And so did you have the funding to start?
No, I did not. And it was probably